By the evening of March 23, 2026, the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline had already climbed to $3.95. Diesel sat at $5.28. Both figures had been rising for weeks. Then, an explosion tore through one of the largest oil refineries in the United States, a facility in Port Arthur, Texas, that processes 435,000 barrels of crude oil per day. The entire operation shut down. No one was killed, but the refinery accounts for roughly 2% of total U.S. refining capacity, and it went offline at a time when the energy market was already under pressure. The margin between stable fuel supply and the next price spike is thinner than most Americans realize, and this event put that margin on full display. The Valero Port Arthur Refinery sits near Sabine Lake, about 90 miles east of Houston. It is Valero Energy Corporation's largest refinery, with approximately 770 employees. The plant converts heavy sour crude oil into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Adjacent to it is the Diamond Green Diesel facility, the world's second largest producer of sustainable aviation fuel. According to the emissions report Valero filed with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the incident began with the release of processed fluid in an area identified as Complex 2. That fluid ignited, striking a diesel hydrotreater unit, equipment that uses hydrogen to remove sulfur from motor fuels. That unit alone handles 47,000 barrels per day. The fire did not stay contained. Valero reported that the ignition caused multiple process unit upsets, cascading through the crude distillation unit, fluid catalytic cracker, hydrocracker, and hydrofluoric alkylation unit. A single fire forced the full shutdown of a 435,000 barrel per day refinery. Jefferson County Sheriff Zena Stevens attributed the blast to what was likely an industrial heater. Officials confirmed it was not a targeted attack. The root cause is still under investigation. The force of the explosion rattled homes as far as 11 miles from the site. One resident reported being knocked to the ground, bruising both knees and injuring a wrist. Others described hairline cracks in their windows. Port Arthur resident Wendell Thornton said he was feeding his dog, about to take him outside, and then it hit. A shelter-in-place order was issued within minutes for the west side of Port Arthur. State highways 82 and 87 were closed. That created an immediate problem for Sabine Pass, a community at the end of a peninsula connected to Port Arthur by a single road that runs directly past the burning refinery. At least 20 students, several teachers, and the school district superintendent were stranded. Buses could not get through. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Marine Unit and the Sabine Pass Port Authority transported approximately 25 children home by boat in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Phyllis Almond, a Marine attendant in Sabine Pass, said there is only one road in and one way out, and that the situation could have been far worse. The fire burned for roughly 8 hours. Jefferson County Judge Jeff Brannick reported it was extinguished at approximately 3:28 in the morning on Tuesday. The shelter-in-place order was lifted just after 5:30 a.m., nearly 12 hours after the initial blast. 2 Port Arthur school campuses opened on a delayed schedule. Sabine Pass schools were canceled for the day. Valero stated that all personnel were accounted for and that there were no recordable injuries, a term that under OSHA definitions typically means incidents requiring only basic first aid. At least one lawsuit describes a different outcome. Arnold and Itkin filed on behalf of refinery worker Jonathan Jaimes, who alleges the blast hurled him to the ground, causing injuries to his neck, back, and spine. That suit seeks more than $1 million. A second lawsuit, filed by Brent Kuhn and Associates on behalf of nearby residents, alleges negligence and seeks a court order to preserve evidence. Attorney Brent Kuhn stated that the blood lessons of Texas City have apparently not been learned. The explosion fell on the 21st anniversary of the 2005 BP Texas City refinery disaster, which killed 15 workers and injured 180 at a site less than an hour from Port Arthur. The environmental data from the incident is considerable. Valero's filing with the TCEQ shows more than 21,000 pounds of chemicals were released. Particulate matter alone reached 15,644 pounds, against a permitted limit of roughly 121, exceeding the threshold by more than 129 times. Carbon monoxide surpassed its limit by more than 5 times. Volatile organic compounds exceeded allowable levels by approximately 1.6 times. Thousands of pounds of sulfur dioxide were also released. These substances are known to irritate the eyes and respiratory system. Valero reported that post-fire monitoring showed no continued air quality threat, but EPA records show that 2,767 people live within 1 mile of the refinery. Of those, 976 are minors, 388 are seniors, 71% are people of color, and 37% are classified as low income. Residents reported a lingering sulfur odor for days after the incident. Parents kept children indoors. Community meetings were organized throughout the following week. The effect on national fuel prices was limited, largely because Valero restarted main refinery operations within approximately 2 days. The company isolated the damaged hydrotreater and brought the remaining units back online. The 47,000 barrel per day hydrotreater remains offline for repairs, with no announced timeline. The rest of the facility is producing near full capacity. An energy analyst cited by KPRC Houston explained that roughly half of all U.S. refining capacity sits along the Gulf Coast, and that the system has enough interconnection and flexibility to absorb a single refinery disruption without a sustained price spike. Valero's stock reflected that assessment. Shares gained 6.19% for the week ending March 27th and were up more than 53% on the year. For investors, the explosion registered as a minor operational disruption. For Port Arthur, it was a 12-hour lockdown, children transported by boat, and 21,000 pounds of chemicals released over a residential area. This was not Valero's only refinery incident in the preceding weeks. In February, an explosion at the company's Ardmore, Oklahoma facility killed a worker named Jesse Biscamp, who died 2 days after the blast. A wrongful death lawsuit followed. Port Arthur came 6 weeks later, at a different site under different circumstances, but within the same company. The broader refining picture added further context. The Phillips 66 Los Angeles refinery had already ceased crude processing and was laying off 277 workers. Valero's own Benicia refinery near San Francisco was winding down, set to idle by April 2026. Those 2 California closures alone were removing 17.5% of the state's refining capacity. Federal energy data projected national fuel inventories would fall to their lowest point since the year 2000. A temporary shutdown at Port Arthur happened inside a system that is already operating with less margin than it has had in decades. As of early April, the main refinery is back in operation. The hydrotreater remains down. The TCEQ is reviewing the emissions filing, and a detailed root cause analysis is expected in coming weeks. At least 2 lawsuits are active. The national average price for regular gasoline has crossed $4 for the first time since 2022. The residents of Port Arthur continue to press for answers about what was in the smoke that covered their neighborhood, whether another incident could occur, and why the community closest to the refinery consistently absorbs the greatest share of risk when something fails. Those questions remain open. They represent the part of the fuel economy that does not appear in the price per gallon.